Schalm, Green Party candidate for the Meadow Lake constituency. Eric, if elected, how would you specifically help the following groups? Children under the age of 18, young families, and seniors.
So that's a really big age range. So I got a couple things for you. The biggest one that we're going to be doing is expanding Medicare. So we want Medicare to be covering ambulance fees. We want Medicare to be covering a provincial drug plan as well, topping out all of our prescriptions at $15. We want Medicare to really be single payer, and we want to look into the feasibility of coverage of dental and optometry as well. But we don't want to make any promises on that. That's just something that we want to look towards. Another big one, too, that we want to bring in under Medicare is we want to bring in midwives. So the NDP closed a lot of hospitals when they were in power, and they had to. It's really expensive to keep maternity wards open in small towns, but no party has done anything since then to address rural births, and we end up with, I've heard, anywhere between 8 to 15 babies born in cars every single year in Saskatchewan. And so what we want to do here is we want to bring in midwives. We want to have them covered under Medicare, and we want to give women that option to have a midwife help with the delivery instead. So right now there's already a system in place for them to be registered, and they're allowed to work with any birthing that is not complicated. And they can have a few other people with them as well to help out with the birthing. So you can have home birthings, specifically, usually it's a home birth, but you can have them anywhere basically with the midwife overseeing the birth. Yeah, those are the big ones as far as Medicare is concerned. Something else we want to bring in is guaranteed basic income. So this is something that's very controversial right now, but it's also catching on in Canada. We've had 2 different tests within Canada. Dauphin, Manitoba was the biggest one and very successful. This was back in the 50s, I believe, 50s or 70s. And then just recently, Kingston, Ontario has said that they are going to bring in a guaranteed basic income as well. So the idea here is that we make sure that nobody makes less money than the poverty line. And the reason it's going to work is because everyone is given a guaranteed amount of money, and any money they make on top of that, they get to keep. And obviously we take taxes off of it as well. But this helps get rid of a lot of the craziness and the bureaucracy that goes on with all the different social services in place right now too. I heard a story of a single mother with 1 daughter, and she needed to buy glasses for her daughter. She was working 2 jobs, and the only way she could do it was to quit both of her jobs and go onto welfare in order to afford glasses for her daughter. And if she works too much, she loses her benefits. And that's just, we don't want a welfare system that perpetuates itself. We don't want people to be relying on the welfare system. We want to enable people to be able to work. And we want to make sure that everyone is able to live decently. And then on top of that, they can do what they want with their time. And make as much money as they want as well. And this is really going to help us as well, because a 2007 report released by the U of R says that 35,000 children within Saskatchewan live in poverty. 35,000, 16%. And of that, 50% are Native American children, and 1/3 are immigrant children. We can do better. I sincerely believe that we can do better than that. And I believe that the Saskatchewan Assured Income for Everyone is the path forward for that as well. Some other things that our government has talked about is bringing in a seniors advocacy a group as well. That would be separate from the government and be able to lobby on behalf of seniors. Just giving them an option to be able to more directly talk to convey their concerns and have them talk to the government. We want to revamp education as well. We want to be working with the teachers. Right now, something controversial as well is that teachers aren't failing children in lower grades specifically. And something I'd like to see us do is adopt something more of a Nordic countries have, where there are no tests up until middle school. So if children aren't going to fail anyway, then we might as well not focus on tests. We need to focus on fostering learning, getting them excited to learn, and teaching them how they learn best as well, whether they're auditory, whether they're visual learners, whether they learn best through doing things. I want to be able to give our children the resources they need in order to learn and in order to love learning as well.
So what can be done to reduce the crime rate in Meadow Lake and the surrounding communities that the RCMP catchment serves in?
So there's a direct correlation between poverty and crime. So the Saskatchewan Assured Income, making sure that nobody lives in poverty, that's going to be a huge step forward for us. And I really believe that this will be a huge cost saver long term in terms of health and in terms of crime as well. But another big one too is we're planning to merge the Ministers of Finance and the Ministers of the Economy into one cabinet position and introduce a new cabinet position called the Minister of Rural Revitalization. Saskatchewan has always been a very rural province, and we've always had a strong rural community as well. And so we want this minister dedicated to making sure that rural communities all around the province are given what they need to succeed: good road access, they're given internet connection, and they're able to stay competitive with the cities, which tend to be more connected than our rural communities as well. I really believe that will be a huge step forward, particularly for the north as well, because the farther north you go in Saskatchewan, the more things break down, the less often they get fixed. So I believe that having a dedicated minister, making sure that everyone has what they need, will allow people to stay where they are and not have to move to cities or move out of province to find what they're looking for.
Now, what's your opinion on public-private partnerships such as the Saskatchewan Hospital and the Provincial bypass?
First off, the land deal. If you don't know what the land deal is, I'd recommend that you look into it. But that aside, I don't want to get into that politics right now. But besides the shady stuff that happens there, there's very, very mixed reports that come out for P3s. It said that it is more cost effective, and usually it does happen faster. And one other great report that I read was for P3 schools, specifically that principals, they get a lot more free time because they don't have to worry about cleaning, dealing with the janitors, that kind of stuff, because the people that own the building contract all of that out. And so principals have more time to focus on the students, focus on the teachers, and focus on making a really good learning environment. So I'm totally on board with that. But the biggest problems that we have with those specifically is that there tends to be less oversight, and things over time they break down, and the companies are not as quick to fix them from what we found. And it seems to be very difficult as well for the school employees to be able to lobby the government, because the government isn't in charge of it again, right? So they have to lobby the government, who then lobbies the people that own the building in order to get things done, which is just outrageous. And so going into power, I'm not... one of the big things we don't want to do is have this partisanship mentality. I don't want to go into power and break down what the Sask party's created, just because the Sask party created it. I want to take a very good, hard look at these P3s. I want to look at what the contract states, and I want to make sure that there is the option to directly lobby the company and get them liable if things start to break and they don't do anything about it, and make sure that there is direct communication between the staffing of the school and the people that own the building, so that there are no conflicts that way. And in terms of road, I don't think I'd be bringing in any new P3s, but if they prove to be effective, then yeah, we would consider them. Absolutely.
Nice. All right, so given the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's findings, do you feel our education system adequately teaches students about residential schools and First Nations issues in general? And if not, what more can be done?
So I graduated about 6 years ago, so I'm not fully up to date on what they're teaching right now, but I do remember when I took social studies that we barely scratched the surface of Native American culture, and I think I remember hearing residential school, and I had no idea what they were. Yes, I believe that we need to do more, and I'm not an expert, right? I didn't live through the residential schools, and I barely knew about them even when I was going through school. I believe that we need to get our Native American community involved with fixing this problem, because they're the ones that know how it affected them, and they're the ones that can tell us how they were treated when they were in the residential schools. I really believe that we need to have that every single class needs to have a field trip out to meet band council members or or yeah, just the band chiefs as well, and be able to see that culture for what it is, and be able to meet people from that culture as well, to give them a better understanding of who these people are, right? Because many of the communities are very close. I know Meadow Lake, we have a lot of reserve land around here, and so people seem to be very they seem to know each other. They seem to interact a lot more. But I know where I came from in Watrous, Saskatchewan, there was a reserve reasonably close, but I was never on it. I never met anyone from that reserve either. And that was something that I had to learn a lot later on in life, when I finally did start to meet Native American people. And I think that this is something that we need our young people to begin to see as well, and begin to experience.
So, given the importance of our vast industry sectors in this area, what would you do to improve conditions for ranchers, farmers and loggers, fishing and hunting, and all the other industry sectors in the area?
Yeah. So a big one we want to do is replace the arbitration board right now, and we want to be bringing in a new body for farmers to be able to lobby to. I have heard some terrible horror stories of oil companies that just kind of come in and start developing land when the farmer doesn't feel like he or she has really hashed things out with them properly. And so I do want a board that has teeth, a board that can actually go after oil companies that are trying to develop in the land, and make sure that everything is set in stone before anything happens. I want to see surface rights be given to owners, and that includes for all of the reserves and the bands as well. They should have the ultimate say in what companies are working and developing on treaty land, and what the conditions of that employment are as well. And I believe that they should be able to directly work with the companies as well, and directly make these deals. I don't think that the government needs to be involved with this. And yeah, they can make up their own minds for that. We want to expand crop insurance to be able to cover cattle, and also losses from cross-contamination for seed crops as well, and also tornado insurance as well.
So where do you stand on how we provide temporary shelter for the homeless, such as the Lighthouse, women's shelters, and what is your take on the current seniors lodge that has been in the works for 7 years here in Meadow Lake, but still no shovels in the ground, and still no word on when those shovels will be in the ground?
Yes, I've heard about that, and there's been a lot of fundraising for that, and it hasn't happened yet. The fact is that we need more seniors' homes. There's shortages absolutely everywhere. And we need to have not just the housing for them, but also the access for them as well. Actually, I'm going to jump back to my hometown really quickly here too. Watrous got a new lodge for their seniors, and it is an extension of the hospital. So it is connected, and the nurses are there all the time, and they're able to give proper care to all the seniors that are within that home as well. And I think that's a brilliant setup, to be perfectly honest. And I want to see more setups like that as well. But I think the government needs to increase its spending, because we are getting an aging population as well. A lot of the boomer generation is getting older. They're getting to that retirement age, and they're also getting past that retirement age into assisted living as well. And we need to be providing for them, because they provided for us. And so it's our responsibility to be able to give back to them what they gave to us. In terms of the housing as well, for homeless people, we don't plan on housing homeless people in Greyhound buses to BC. We plan on keeping them here and providing for them here, and giving them the opportunities that they need here. Again, we have the Saskatchewan Assured Income for Everyone. We want to eliminate poverty, and so we hope that the need for lighthouses and for homeless shelters goes down. But we also want to be funding them as well, because those lighthouses and those shelters, they give shelter for abused women and abused men, right? People who have been kicked out of their homes. They are still very essential, and we still need them, and they still need to be funded. I do want to work with cities as well to end homelessness. It's Medicine Hat I believe it is, has ended homelessness. They've built homes for homeless people, and they've helped them get back on their feet, and it has been wildly successful. And I want to see that happening in Saskatchewan as well.
So now, next question. What are the pros and cons of privatizing liquor stores here, and what do you feel about more vendors in the area?
So my party wants to turn all of our Crown corporations into Crown cooperatives, allowing the Saskatchewan people to buy into them and to elect the leaders of the Crown cooperatives and determine basically where the profits are put and what happens from every single portion of the Crown cooperatives. And so our current plan right now is to do that with the liquor stores as well, allow the people of Saskatchewan to own the liquor stores, with the government still maintaining the large lion's share. But something I'm allowed to say as well is that, to be perfectly honest, for me, I don't mind if they are privatized personally. I think that this should be up to the Saskatchewan people and the people within the area. I believe that they should be allowed to decide. But to me, what needs to be a government service is what is essential, and alcohol sales are not an essential service, right? Insurance is essential, healthcare is essential, liquor, it's not essential. And so I believe that, if people want more liquor stores, I think that they should be allowed to have them. This is very much an individual case-by-case, that it should be handled by the people in the area, and I don't think it's our place as government to dictate that. So,
fair enough. So is enough being done to recognize issues with mental health? And again, if not, what more can be done?
Absolutely not. I spent a summer working in Camp Easter Seal, again down by my hometown. It's Manatee Beach. And I worked with children and adults with physical and mental disabilities, and they were some of the most beautiful people I've ever met. They were so inspiring to me, just to see them, live with conditions that I'll never have to deal with. Hopefully, I'll never have to deal with. And they were such strong people, and especially the people my age. They're the ones I connected with the most, and they were totally on board with the SED. They loved having that guaranteed income from the government again, and so that was part of the reason why I'm so on board with a guaranteed basic income, because the problem with the SED is that it only goes so far, and once they start working past that point, they start losing benefits, right? And so again, there is no motivation to keep working, because you spend more hours working and you make the same amount of money. So that's why I believe that we need to be switching over. But especially in terms of mental health, right? We just, like Laloche, you don't have to look any farther than Laloche, right? Not enough is being done. And I am an exercise therapist. I am focused on physical health all the time, on people's physical well-being. And it's become more and more apparent to me as I fix these things, right? We've done so much for our physical health, and we don't do enough for our emotional health and our mental health. And it needs to become a part of our Medicare. It needs to become a regular part of our healthcare, and it needs to be put into schools as well, especially high schools. Oh, okay, yeah.
Second last question here. Premier Bradwell is against a federal tax on carbon emissions, saying it is far too costly on the Saskatchewan economy. Instead, he is electing to do a carbon capture facility near Boundary Dam. If not a carbon tax, what can be done? What can the province do to combat emissions, especially from the two biggest emitters, SaskPower and SaskEnergy?
Yeah, so actually Victor Lau, our party leader, came out against the carbon tax, and we all supported him with that as well. We don't think that a carbon tax is the right way to go, because we don't need to punish the middle class, right? We don't have an option where we buy our gas or what vehicles we drive, right? You could drive a Tesla, right? But a Tesla is also about $250,000, right? So those options don't exist for the middle class, and they aren't the ones that need to be punished through a carbon tax. Ideally, in my perfect world, I would see a carbon tax on countries. Big polluting countries should be paying them, and corporations should be paying them, not the people. The people should not be. But again, that's out of my scope. That's just an ideal world. That's where I'd want to see that. The Boundary Dam, I'm not a fan of. It was very much a half-baked idea. They said that it was going to be doing one thing and it didn't perform. It was supposed to be taking 250,000 cars off of the road, and it's taking 100,000 off the road, right? Which, it's results, right? And I can't argue with results, but I don't think that it was a great investment on the government's part. And again, I look at it this way too. We spend millions of dollars pulling coal out of the ground. We send it to a facility where it is burned, and then we spend millions of dollars to catch it and put it back into the ground. And it's just not sound economics to me. I don't think it's a great idea, and it's also been attacked for its international viability as well, because you need to have a place to store that carbon. So currently we store it 3,300 kilometers underground, and we put it into water. Adding carbon to water makes it more acidic. And so there are certain environmental hazards with that as well. And seepage, specifically in Saskatchewan, I think will be okay. Fingers crossed will be okay. But, somewhere in China where there are earthquakes, where there are tidal waves, right? Where there are natural disasters, seepage is a way bigger deal, right? And if you store millions of tons of carbon down there, right, and suddenly a natural disaster comes and releases it all back up, you're back to square one, right? You spent millions of dollars to do nothing, essentially. And so I don't support it. I won't necessarily scrap it. We wouldn't necessarily scrap it the moment we got into government, right? Because it's a huge investment. And so if we can prove that this particular facility works, and if it becomes economically feasible to make it work, then we'll make it work. Because there is a lot of money in it already. But if it is a total dud, if it is not going to do what it was supposed to do, then we'll scrap it. Absolutely. So.
Last question. At what point would a disagreement with your party result in your resignation?
So this is an interesting question, and I want to go over crossing the floor really quickly for anybody who doesn't know. So crossing the floor means voting against your party. And usually in Canadian politics, it is a really big deal because if you vote against your party, typically you're not welcome back either. So you cross the floor and you join the other party. But the Green Party is not centralized, and I am not expected to vote along with Victor Lau on every single decision that he makes. I am allowed to make my own decisions. So what's going to make me vote against my party? A better idea. Whoever has the best idea, whoever has the idea I think will move us forward, that is who I will be voting with. And if that is the opposition, if that is the party that has one member in it, I'm voting with them. And I will be giving my reasons why, and I will always be explaining my stance. And I believe that's how politics should work. I don't think that we should be electing one person, right? You vote for... Technically here you vote for Jeremy Harrison, but you're electing Brad Wall, right? You vote for Dwayne Lassasse, right? But you're electing Cam Broughton because they control the party and they make the decisions, right? For me, if you are voting for me, you are electing me and my judgment and what I believe is best. And what I believe is best, I will listen to you and listen to what you believe is best.